Hi everyone, I'm going to be reviewing the first part of Chapter 4, Perception, What You See is What You Get. With everyone having their own perception, failing to understand others' point of view can really lead to problems. The problems can lead to conflicts, and that can lead to not having a pleasant time communicating with someone. Being able to see the world through someone else's eyes offers a chance to gain insights that are different than your own. The picture example that I gave in one of my slides included two people where they were looking at a number and they have two different perceptions on what they think it is. One thinks it's a 6 and the other thinks it's a 9. This makes me think of the game ThinkBlot, where people come up with what they see. It's a great way to have people explain how they see something, and it opens others' eyes to something new by explaining and listening. The perception process is done in 4 ways: selection, organization, interpretation, and negotiation. There are several factors that cause us to notice some things and ignore others. One of those factors is repetitious stimuli that attracts attention. In terms of communication, this can be something that causes someone to be really distracted. Working in kindergarten, there's a student who does something kind of strange with her mouth. She makes these weird movements right before she's going to speak and also while she's speaking. When she's repeating this over and over again and you're like really honed in, you're looking at her, like showing her that, hey, I'm trying to listen to you, it's actually hard to get past those mouth movements and focus on what she's saying. Our impressions of other communicators can be organized using a number of different schemes, which can also be called perceptual schema. We can organize by appearance, social roles, interaction style, psychological traits, and membership. When we organize people into a scheme, we typically make generalizations or predictions about them. And once the generalizations lose touch with reality, it can then lead to stereotyping. Back in 2009, my mom and I were in Springfield, Illinois, and we were trying to find a grocery store, and our GPS kept bringing us in circles and circles. And so finally we stopped at a convenience store. She parked the car, and before she got out, she noticed that there were black men standing around and in their cars. And before she got out, she told me to lock the doors. When she got inside, she was the only female, and she was the only white person. She was nervous because of how she organized the men and what generalizations she was making about them. When she got back to the car, she told me how she felt terrible for making assumptions about them and how they were some of the nicest people that she had actually ever met. There's a TED Talk called How to Overcome Our Biases, Walk Boldly Toward Them that I found, and I included the link on one of the slides. And it talks about overcoming our biases, and it's definitely worth a watch. There's a part of the video that I wanted to share with you that talked about actually seeing color and not using color blindness. A quote from the talk is, "Stare at awesome black people, look at them directly in their faces, and memorize them. Because when we look at awesome folks who are black, it helps to disassociate the association that happens automatically in our brain. I'm trying to reset your automatic associations about who black men are. I'm trying to remind you that young black men grow up to be amazing human beings who have changed our lives and made them better." This was just such an amazing video, and the mentioning of almost retraining our brains so we're not stereotyping and having biases. Definitely take a look at it. It's great. Punctuation is used to describe the determination of causes and effects in a series of interactions, and it can lead to communication problems. An example for me is something I've said to my boyfriend is, "I don't like your step-grandmother because she doesn't talk to me," and his response is, "She doesn't talk to you because you act like she's not there." Now, after several times of being ignored by her, it's easier to act like she's almost not there. Now, I'm not being rude or anything and ignoring her if she addresses me, but I typically stay away from her. But by being able to admit that I do act like she's not there and not just think my way is the only way, my boyfriend and I are able to communicate better and not get into a huge full-on fight or really any fight to begin with. Once our perceptions have been selected and organized, the information that has been collected and sorted is interpreted by attaching meaning to sense data. One factor that causes us to interpret an event is the degree of involvement with people. Two of my coworkers at times will use their cell phones when we're doing recess duty. And one of my coworkers I know better and like better. And so when she apologizes for using her cell phone, I'm able to accept it better than if the other person is to apologize. Another way that causes us to interpret interpret an event is through knowledge. When we have more information available, we're able to make more sound decisions about something. For example, when we know that a child didn't have breakfast, we're able to understand that they come to school grumpy because they didn't have anything to eat, and that they aren't being rude or defiant for no apparent reason. They need food, so we're having knowledge of that. Negotiation is a big part of sense-making that occurs between and among people as they influence one another's perceptions and try to achieve a shared perspective. In the book, it mentioned that it's rare to draw conclusions about something or someone without comparing notes with others. For me, if I go shopping online or in a store, I almost always ask someone for their thoughts. While we might not always agree completely on things, we tend to work together to come up with a compromise, such as a different size or color, etc. I actually did this the other night when I was trying to find a rain jacket. I sent the link to my boyfriend and was like, okay, these are the 3 colors that I like. Which one do you think would be best? And we were able to figure it out. There are 4 influences that cause us to select, organize, interpret, and negotiate information. They are access to information, physiological influences, cultural differences, and social roles. There are many subcategories for each influence. When we receive access to new information, our perceptions of others change, and social media is one of the ways that can really affect perceptions. For a lot of people, I feel like they don't necessarily think about what they're posting online. They're not being careful about it, so it's really easy to learn what someone likes or what they dislike. And if it's something that you disagree with, it might change how you see that person. Not too long ago, I actually unfriended a person on Facebook because of what they kept posting. It wasn't because I disagreed with them. It was just stuff that I didn't care to see every day. As for physiological factors, such as senses, psychological challenges, age, health and fatigue, hunger, and biological cycles, they all help us perceive the world in a specific way. I'm one of those people who become grumpy when they're hungry, and my boyfriend learned pretty quickly to get me something to eat when I started to get grumpy. Being grumpy because of hunger, I'm not in a pleasant mood to converse with, and when trying to do so, it causes me to be short with somebody and see only my view on things. If I and others want me to be able to perceive how someone sees something, it's important that I have something to eat. I'm not hungry in fear of getting grumpy. In terms of psychological challenges, a person with ADHD might become easily distracted. Now, maybe this is the educator in me, but when I'm trying to communicate with someone who's easily distracted, I try to come up with ways to help keep that person really focused. It could be making sure that it's a quiet environment with not a lot going around, or for a child, it could be getting down to their level so that you're eye to eye with them. The section on age was pretty interesting in how going through the years we tend to view parents differently. As a child, you think of them being perfect and knowing everything, to a teenager where you think they're stuck in their way and they're mean, to an adult where you really value what they have to say. Now for me, I'm fortunate that I've never thought of my parents as being mean or stuck in their ways. And I've always been close to my parents, so it was never a case of not communicating much with them throughout the teenage years like others. Though going with their example, it's really interesting how the communication process would change and how we think about them over the years. Health and fatigue definitely affects how we all communicate with one another. Working in a school, germs spread really quick, so kids and adults are constantly not feeling well. And with children and adults, you can see their behaviors change when they're not feeling well or are tired. It's important that if you experience someone being short with you, to think about what's going on and wonder if they're tired or sick. It's really easy to jump to conclusions and just assume that someone is mean or that you don't like them if they're being short. However, we really need to stop and think about things. What's going on that's causing them to act like that? The gap between people from different backgrounds is another way that blocks communication. It's easy to forget that people everywhere don't see things the way we do. I watched another TED Talk called What It's Like to Be Muslim in America, and I would strongly urge you to watch it. It gives great insight on the Muslim community living in America, and there are so many different cultural differences here in America, and it would help if people were open-minded, learning to appreciate people from different backgrounds. Social roles help enable a society to function smoothly while also leaving wide gaps and understanding when the roles are defined in advance. The different social roles that affect our perception and communication are gender roles, occupational roles, and relational roles. I really enjoyed reading the section about the occupational roles and how the kind of work we do can influence our view on the world. My mom and I are both educators in an elementary school, and my dad is a plumber. Whenever we go somewhere and there's a child who's whining or crying, my dad's quick to make a comment about how, oh, that's really annoying. But for my mom and I, we start making a list wondering, did they get hurt? Are they just throwing a tantrum because they're not getting their way? Are they hungry? And so many other reasons. We're used to dealing with whining and crying children and trying to help them, so it's no surprise that those are the thoughts we think of when hearing or seeing a crying child. Gender roles was another interesting section. With so many people questioning their gender identity today, I think it's important that we try to steer clear of making gender assumptions in terms of commenting about things that only that gender should like or how they should act. That being said, certain genders do typically perceive things different than others. Masculine males tend to see interpersonal relationships as a way to be competitive, whereas feminine females tend to be nurturing and express feelings and emotion. This doesn't mean that girls can't competitive. I should know because I am. What we do want to think about is how can we communicate with specific genders without assigning some sort of gender role. There's a video I saw a couple days ago that had a mom and daughter looking at books on a shelf. There were about 100 books, and they got rid of all the books that had to do with princesses or had no female character in it, and a few other things that I just can't remember. And out of those 100 books or so, there were only about 8 left, which is pretty sad. Not every girl wants to read about princesses or wear pink. They want books about pirates and adventures, but that show girls doing those sorts of things. And when we talk to girls, we ask if their favorite color is pink or purple, or tell them that they look pretty. We don't tell boys that they're handsome. I mean, we do some, but that's typically not the first thing that comes up. It's, hey, do you play sports? What about girls? Girls play sports. Let's see here. As you can see, there's a lot that's included with perception, and it really does affect how we communicate with others. It's important to stop and think about all these different factors and how we can create it so that we communicate better with everyone. That's it for my part of Chapter 4 review. If you haven't already taken a look at my PowerPoint, check out the pictures and the TED Talks I included, and also check out the Part 2 of the chapter review that Kenna is doing. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.